title of my talk is called Falling Down the Upstairs Case. I kind of get it switched sometimes. So, soft-spoken shenanigans, sleep eating, and the exceptionally awkward path to pedagogy, brought to you awkwardly by myself. So before I get going, I do want to thank, although he's not here, Peter Smagorinsky is the one who nominated my book for this award, and he's been such a huge support throughout my entire teaching career that I don't really know where I would be without him at this point. And aside, a happy early birthday to my dad, who is turning 60 tomorrow. He's in the front row here.
Thank you for that, Ryan.
Even though my brother seems to think he's turning 58. Anyways, I've been thinking about this moment for 123 days, is what I counted out to be, since July 24th, when I first got this email in my Gmail account, and it said congratulations, and I reread it over 100 times just to make sure it was actually true. I was like, oh, this can't be legit. And I've been, since that day, and as it's gotten closer, this has just become more and more true. I've been both terrified and triumphant, or I felt terrified and triumphant about the whole thing. The terror mainly comes from just the whole act of public speaking, which is kind of ironic. Like, I've been teaching for 8 years, but it still rattles me on a level that I cannot describe most days. Because I'm usually not the guy who's on center stage talking. I'm usually the guy who's kind of like in the corner just observing, and I'll have my little sarcastic quirks that I'll mention here and there. So it really is like a high school classroom. I appreciate it. So I've also felt triumphant, though, on the same token, just because this book really, the whole process of writing this book has meant so much to me. And for the past 4 months since this most recent school year has been in session, I've felt triumphant for the very first time in my career. And I've had moments of validation in the past, and peppering of props for a job well done here and there. But when I found out about this award, it just seemed like, for the first time in a really long time, I could sit back and take a deep breath, exhale, and just sort of feel at ease with everything, which was a very sort of reassuring feeling. And it's something that I probably hadn't felt really since before I started teaching 8 years ago. In trying to think about where to begin with this, I did ask Peter Smagorinsky about, where do I begin with this? Like, I don't really know what to talk about. I've never been able to talk about my book. I've never been at a conference, and this is all just so foreign to me, so what do I do? And he was like, just talk about the book and like how it all came to be. So I was like, right, that is pretty sound advice. So for me, in a weird way, this whole journey started with sleep eating, which is kind of like sleepwalking, but with a very specific direction. So since I've been teaching, and only when the school year is in session, I sleep eat. And you never really know when it's going to happen or how frequently, but my wife Mara is a true testament to this, because when I first started teaching, it'd be like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd get out of bed, she'd hear the door open, and she'd be like, Neumann, where are you going? And I'd lie. I'd say I was going to the bathroom or going to get a drink of water, and then I'd close the door and disappear. And she knew I was lying too, but she didn't know if I was awake, sleeping, or somewhere in between. And much of the time, I didn't, and I still don't either know when it's going to happen. So, the whole extreme side of it is that there are days when I'll wake up in the morning and I feel really, really full, but I'm not really sure why. So it's like I'll walk into the kitchen and it's almost like a crime scene investigation. There's like wrappers, like empty Tupperware, crumbs, and toaster or bread in the toaster is what Mara said I need to mention. And then it'll kind of click like, oh, I'm full because I ate my lunch and Mara's for today. So that's one way that I figure out. Sometimes I wake up at I'll be in the act of this criminal offense of eating while I'm not really conscious, and it's almost like waking up in a stranger's house. It's like, how did I get here, and why am I holding this carton of half and half? And then I realized that I was drinking half and half straight from the container, which is kind of gross. So, but the one we tend to disagree about the most involves a stick of butter. We still disagree to this day, but long story short, a stick of butter went missing one night. That I ate it. I disagree, because I feel like I would have felt that. But But to this day, it's like, it's kind of, it's up in the air. She's pretty sure I did, but I still disagree pretty adamantly about the whole thing. Anyways, though, as sleep eating occurred, this was, going through my first 3.5 years teaching. There were all these other kind of health-related impairments that I was sort of experiencing or noticing. Things like some of the normal stuff for teaching, like irritability, hermit-like behaviors, antisocial dispositions. I actually had high blood pressure. I was like 25, and I go to get my physical, and they tell me I have high blood pressure. I'm like, what? Like, I run every day. There's no way this is possible. I had a dislocated knuckle and a fractured foot, during my first 5 years teaching. And not that I did think too much of it, but there's just so much that happens on any given school day that many people know who are just in the field of education. It's hard to really sit down and process what's going on. So I was on winter break, and I was burnt out. I was ready to quit. I probably thought about quitting every day, towards the middle part of that year. And I just couldn't figure it out. And kind of like Scott, there was this question that kind of came to me and it just kept reoccurring over and over again. It was, what the hell? It was, what the hell am I doing with my life? Why is teaching so hard? Why can't I hack it? This is ridiculous. I should be able to do this. And, when I was a student, it always looks so easy. The teacher just comes in, they have everything ready to go. Why can't I do this? So I decided that I was going to start a blog. And actually, that's what my next slide is. I set up this free blog through WordPress, and I needed a name for it. So I called it Neumann Times. And really, it was right before New Year's Eve, and I made a resolution, which I hardly ever do, but the resolution was that I was just going to write every day when the new semester started. And because I really loved writing, but I just never had time to do it because teaching is just so demanding. So as soon as that new semester started, that's what I did. And I told a couple of my friends about it, just so they would kind of keep me accountable for what I was doing. So that way, if I felt tired or frustrated or both, I would actually still make the effort to sit down and write. So every school day for 12 weeks, I did. I wrote about just what happened at school, because the best advice, some of the best advice I've ever gotten about writing is just to write what you know. And it's so simple, but it's so true. And it gave me a real opportunity to reflect on not only teaching, but really just sort of my actions and what I was trying to do with my life and what I'm still trying to do with my life. So that also, on the flip side, kind of led to me going into class many times without a lesson plan, because I would come home and it was okay, it's time to write. It wasn't time to revise lesson plans or email or grade or any of that silly stuff. It was just time to write. So some days I would just go in totally improv. I would open the book and I would try to figure out what we were going to do in class that day. And thanks to the internet, sometimes I was very successful and sometimes it was an awful, an atrocious experience that, I probably still have nightmares about some of those classes. But one of the best ones that I had, and this is actually something that came from an improv class, was, probably going into the back half of that third year, and I gave my students this article about a woman who had been run over by a bus, in New York, I think. And she wasn't killed, and there were bystanders all around, and the bystanders, they didn't say anything. They all just went to the bus. They lifted the bus up high enough to get this woman removed, and they took her to the hospital, and I'm pretty certain she was saved. And I thought that it was this really sort of amazing sort of human interest story, or just something that would really lead to a good discussion. But my kids, they couldn't care less. It was the first class of the day. They were whatever. We're just reading another article. When's this class going to end? So I decided we were going to go outside. So I just told everybody, get up, let's go out to the parking lot. And they're like, Newman, what are we doing? I was like, just follow me, So I take them in my car, which is this little Toyota Matrix. It's like a wannabe Prius, but it just doesn't get as good a gas mileage. It's true. So we go out to the car, and they all get in front of it, and they're like, okay, this is your car. What do you want us to do? I was like, I want lift up my car. I was like, if you guys don't think that's an amazing story, try and lift up my car. It weighs about a ton. It's not a school bus, right? So let's just give it a go. And they're all just standing there looking at me no, not going to happen. So it's all right, if you guys do it, if you manage to lift my car, one side of it, 2 inches off the ground, I'll bring everybody Chick-fil-A in the morning. And they were like, okay. So they all and 6 of them quickly get to one side, and they lift it up. And it was, no problem. Really, really easy. And then it's the ground effects, a side panel sort of thing, snaps off the car. The car falls to the ground, and the kids are there's 3 of them holding the side panel. And they're oh my God, in this car. And I was looking at them really awkwardly too. I was like, I wasn't expecting that. So we brought it back to class, and it was like the trophy in the classroom that day, and everybody got Chick-fil-A the next morning. But then we actually had a discussion about the article, which was really, really cool. So that was like one of the better experiments. Like one of the bad episodes kind of involves a dislocated knuckle, which I won't spend too much time talking about. But I didn't have the greatest plan in class one day, and a girl and a guy got in a verbal argument at the school that I was teaching at. And where I taught for the first 5 years was the opposite of my high school experience, like in pretty much every fashion. So there are a lot of transient students, a lot of minorities. I was minority, which was the first time in my life that I had ever really experienced that side of things. So this argument starts to take place, and they get up out of their seats and they're like face to face, like yelling at each other. There's like, spit like going onto each other, like yelling at each other so closely. And I'm trying to get them out of the classroom, and so like I'm herding them kind of towards the door, and I've never really been much of a yeller. They're not listening to me. And I was like, I need this to stop because I'm worried that they're actually going to get in a fight, like a fisticuffs fight. And I threw a punch between the two of them into my classroom door and punched it open, this closed door, and it got the argument to stop, and it really, really hurt. And as soon as the door was opening, like as I heard it connect, like my right, like this pinky right here, it was like that dull sort of thud pop, and I was like, oh no, that's not me. But it's still the school day going on, and it's not, you can't call a timeout or be like, oh, okay guys, I'm gonna go. Like you just, So get the argument to stop, and then I just went through the rest of the day, and I never, my hand was slowly like swelling to the size of an oven mitt. And, I never went to the doctor, even though Mara suggested that I should go. And eventually the swelling starts to go down, and then, it was like towards the end of that week, or maybe the next week, I was like, okay, I don't know if this is dislocated or broken. I'm going to try and put it back in place myself during class, which was a really bad idea. So you can imagine this idiotic move, right? It seemed, I don't know if there was logic behind it, but it just seemed like a good idea at the time. So I tried, I just pushed as hard as I could, like trying to push the knuckle back in, and it was very, very painful. Everything went black. I couldn't hear anything. And next thing I know, it's like I'm in, I come back to, and it's like this cold sweat. And, the nurse is talking to me, and she's like, taking my blood pressure. And she's like, your blood pressure is kind of high. I'm like, she's like, and you're an idiot, so like, don't do that again. I was like, thank you very much. So those were kind of the extremes of like really, really good days, really, really bad days. But ultimately I got really burnt out again with teaching, and I just stopped writing altogether. So I got 12 weeks through with this blog, I had all these stories, and I just quit because I got too stressed out again. And almost a year and a half later, towards the end of my 5th year, I just decided I needed to find another school to teach at or quit teaching altogether. And I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go back and teach at the high school that I graduated from, which is just like a weird sort of twisting of the fates. So I went there, and that's where I've been teaching ever since. But that summer between, like where I was, South Cobb High School, and where I now am, Pope High School in Cobb County, Georgia, I really had time to sit down and think for the first time, just about everything, not just career-wise, in a really long time. So I looked at the blog, and I went through all my stories, and I was like, I think I might have a book. And I'd always wanted to write a book. It was on my bucket list. It was on my bucket list and everything. So that summer, that's what I did. I just put it all together. And, I know nothing about agents and, publishing companies and all that stuff to this day. So I was like, I don't want to sit around and wait forever for someone to say yes, so I'm going to publish this myself. So Amazon has this independent. Oh, is that 1 minute? Okay, all right. So I'll cut it off real quick. So I ended up self-publishing my book, and after that I actually sent it to Peter Smagorinsky, who nominated it for this award, and it's kind of been a long story short ever since. It's led to this opportunity, which was great. And then just sort of hitting on the theme for this whole convention, the reinventing, the future of English. I have essentially reinvented my career through reflection, which is a large part of what this award is all about. I was asked what I want to do with this book, and I took a long time to think of an answer, but I realized that what I would like to do with this book is something that this conference has offered me, which is to try and promote reflective inquiry as not really, not only a teaching skill, but just sort of like a life skill, because it's very, very valuable, and it's, you know, meant the difference in so many things for me. So this is some info about me. I'm going to shut up now. Thank you guys for your time.